Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything. This story is made by Craine, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe it. You have got to be kidding, Naruto angrily huffed, as he stared at the 100th failed summoning that he, summoned. The blonde-haired ninja squinted hard upon the meager, insignificant thing standing on the severed tree stump. Feeling as hopeless as ever on the whole ordeal, he easily concluded that if one were to summon something so goddamn pathetic, they would be much better off shoving their head between their legs and kissing their ass goodbye. But Naruto, as always, wasn't for the idea of quitting. There he was, in the river region of the vast forest, just outside Konoha, spilling his blood, sweat and tears to perfect his technique. On a few occasions, Naruto thought that maybe, things wouldn't so damn complicated if Jiraiya, that sickening L, would stop gawking at the half-en women playing in the water on the other side of a large bush, and supervise his training like he said he would. But that obviously wasn't about to happen since he just had to stare at them for his abundantly important research. Naruto turned around and glared daggers at his so-called supervisor. Hey, Ero Sennin, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you supervising my training like you said you would? He fumed. Jiraiya immediately ceased his horrendous impersonation of Count Dracula's chuckle, and turned to face Naruto, only to catch the sight of the pathetic deformity that was his summoning. The aged hermit plastered a comical squint as one of his eyebrows twitched. Naruto, you mean to tell me, that's the best you can do after 3 weeks of training? Damn, you really are hopeless, aren't ya? Jiraiya carelessly mocked. Naruto's eyes glimmered with fury, before he dashed at the lead-toed hermit. Pointing and accusing at his supervisor, the blue-eyed genin started to yell and holler at him, blowing the Sannin's hair and facial features back. Oh come on. Gimme a break. I've been working myself to the bone, and I don't see Yoao trying to supervise my ga. Naruto's rant was cut a tad short as he snapped out of the plane of consciousness and collapsed on the rocky ground below in complete and total exhaustion. Jiraiya rose from his keeling position and stared down at the fallen genin. The white-haired Sannin smiled. HMPH. Out cold, again, eh, Naruto? Well, I guess I really can't blame the boy. I mean, hell, the only thing that's kept him on his toes for this long was pure guts and determination. A valuable asset, yes, but it's going to take more than that. And somehow, I don't know, I think the kid might actually have what it takes, but that remains to be seen, doesn't it? He conversed to himself. Meanwhile, within the walls of Konoha, Sakura Haruno was locked in her house, or to be more specific, she was locked in her room with many thoughts surfing through her mind. The pink-haired kunoichi lay flat on her bed staring at the ceiling. Many things bothered her at that moment, one, being the main component, her beloved Sasuke, whom she still feared for, because of the blasted curse mark that morphed him into that beast of a man. Sakura still grimaced at the horrible memories that were forever burned into her psyche. The jade-eyed female slowly turned her attention to the group photo of her and her team for what had to be the 27th time that day. Sakura was just so worried about Sasuke, but she also started to think that all of her worrying was making her sick. She knew that she had to get out and move. If only for a walk, then so be it, but she simply had to get up and get loose. With these thoughts being the only thing to motivate her, Sakura grudgingly pried herself out of bed and sat upon the edge. The slender genin idly stared at her feet for a little while longer before she fully rose from her bed. Slipping on her blue sandals, Sakura walked out of her room. Since her mother wasn't home, it was a pretty empty shelter. But, hey, at least she was getting out. When Sakura emerged from her humble abode, she was greeted with the beautiful and refreshing rays of sunlight. It wasn't too hot, or anything, it was a pretty nice day, enough to actually put a smile on the pink-haired female's face. During her aimless walk, Sakura spotted Naruto and some old geyser, of whom she was not familiar, passing by. They weren't exactly close enough for them to notice her, especially since Naruto was obviously preoccupied with something. That is, if the fact that he was practically dragging the old man across the freaking road screaming, ramen ramen ramen, wasn't a factor. Typical Naruto, Sakura said quietly to herself, while watching the pair speed away in the direction of Ichiraku Ramen. Ever since the battle with her best friend Ino in the Chunin exams ended in a draw, she considered it an epic failure. Sakura has been given much time to think about things, especially her place in the team, not to mention the team itself. Lately, Sakura has been doubting her abilities and how they could contribute to her team. At the very least, she desired to help her comrades a little more. Sure, her experiences in the Forest of Death have made her quite the force to be reckoned with, due to her hardened resolve, but since her loss to Ino, Sakura has been in a cycle of self-questioning. The pink-haired Kunoichi continued her walk as her thoughts were finally able to shift normally. She was at last able to think of something other than Sasuke. Out of everything that had gone through her head, the last component was Naruto. Sakura started to wonder why she was so rotten to the boy. True, he was loud, annoying, and crude, but he was still her teammate. And out of all of the times that she swore to herself that she would be nice to him, the end result was the same, a whack to the head, a slam to the face, or just a flat-out bing session. It's his own fault. If he weren't, well, himself, then maybe I wouldn't have to hit him, Sakura grudged to herself. That boy really needs to learn some humility. She could never figure out why, but Naruto and his childish antics always left a bad taste in her mouth. Was it so hard to ask for someone to just grow up, especially if they were on a team together? Of course, maybe that's why Sakura always wailed on Naruto. She just wanted him to grow up, to take charge and stop being such a kid. With her mind now stuck in another cycle, Sakura stopped in the middle of the walkway to collect her thoughts about Naruto. She had to admit, Naruto may have been a bit immature, but there were more than a few occasions where he had pulled through when he was needed the absolute most. How could anyone, even her, ignore that? Despite who he was, Naruto was a valuable asset to the team. Sakura looked down at the ground as she gave the prospect a little more consideration. Maybe I've been coming down a little too hard on the guy. I mean, he tries harder than anyone I've ever met, in fact. Maybe I should cut him a little more slack, she thought. Of course, it was at the sound of Naruto's voice that snapped Sakura out of her thoughts. Hey, Sakura-chan, Sakura-chan, over here, Naruto shouted out. Despite her previous thoughts, Sakura couldn't help but grimace at what the guy wanted, but why deny him at a time like this? It's not like she had anything better to do with her life, right now. Elsewhere, at the top of one of Konoha's buildings, Jiraiya was sitting down at the edge, looking through his ever-present telescope in the direction of the hot springs. Well, I think you can all pretty much guess what the old L was looking at. Oh ho 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 yeah, baby. Daddy Jiraiya likes what he sees. Oh yeah? Take it off, baby. Take it off, he drooled. Normally, Jiraiya's research couldn't be interrupted unless he was annoyed, distracted or otherwise troubled about something. This time, however, the toad hermit noticed something outside of his line of sight. Jiraiya immediately ceased his research and took a look down at two people, who were none other than Naruto and Sakura. The hyperactive knucklehead was pulling his fellow ninja along with him as he ran to what seemed to be a more secluded area. Jiraiya trails the two with his eyes and smiles. Mr. Smooth makes his move, he said. Out of, instant flashback out of. So, Naruto. Nani, Ero Sennen, would there happen to be someone you like? Naruto simply had to raise an eyebrow as this. Wah. You know, like a special girl that you admire. The blonde Genin's eyes widened like hell at hearing Jiraiya's question. He blushed and started rubbing the back of his head like the goofy idiot he was. What? Well, I sorta do. I mean, I think so. It's just that well, just answer the damn question, already, Jiraiya demanded. Oh, it's no one. Just Sakura-chan. Out of, end instant flashback out of. Jiraiya's smile widened as he remembered that. Sweep her off her feet Naruto, he said, before silently following them. While he did, however, the Eled Mountain Sage spotted a very strange-looking box that was obviously painted to look like a rock. Jiraiya almost cackled at the pitiful attempt of stealth, but kept his cool and watched, as the rock tailed Naruto and Sakura. Seriously, who the hell does Konohamaru think he's fooling? Naruto finally reached a destination that he considered uncrowded. Sakura leaned her back upon a fence and crossed her arms. Okay, Naruto. What do you want? She asked, rather rudely. A blushing Naruto, being the blathering mess that he was at the time, couldn't seem to form those little sounds that your mouth makes except they actually make sense. What were they called again? Words. Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, see, Sakura-chan, look, if it's money you want, then sorry, but I'm fresh out, Sakura said, cutting Naruto off. No, it's not that. It just that, why do I have to blow it at a time like this? Ero Sennin gives me a chance to give the girl of my dreams the biggest hug of her life and I'm choking on my own stupidity. God, she's more beautiful than ever. No. Focus, Naruto, you hopeless bastard, focus. Sakura shook her head at her teammate's idiocy. Well, if it's nothing, then I'm gone, she said, before immediately turning to walk away. At the realization that he may have blown his only chance, Naruto's eyes went rampante with disbelief. He was going to completely miss his chance to do what they came there to do. He wanted to hold her, to caress her, to let her know how much she was wanted and appreciated her. He didn't care what it took, he would let her know, and he would let her know today. No, Sakura-chan, wait, Naruto exclaimed, before reaching out and gasping onto Sakura's shoulder. The desperate blonde genin yanked his love interest's shoulder a little more forcefully than he had intended. As a result, Sakura lost her balance as she was abruptly spun back around. Before she knew it, the pink-haired genin lost her footing completely and time suddenly felt as though it became slow and monotonous, for both of them. Sure, Naruto didn't mean to trip her, but come on, how could he pass up a chance like this? Yes, this is it. Here I come, Sakura-chan, Naruto thought dreamingly to himself. Of course, it was at this time that the pathetic excuse for a disguise the rock just happened to ram into Naruto's calf at the most inappropriate time. By the time Sakura snapped herself to her senses, she instantly noticed Naruto's face mere inches from her own. Though she glared at him wildly for pulling such a stunt, the lightning quick production of her thoughts made her realize what was about to happen, causing her expression to change. She suddenly went into shock. What does he think he's? The fact that something Sakura would never dream of doing was about to happen, she found it excruciatingly difficult to quicken her reflexes. No way. There's just no way. I can't let this happen, Sakura desperately grimaced. She couldn't allow this to happen. She would never do something like this. Not with him. Never. But things were looking very bleak for Sakura. She could almost see herself pressing her lips against No. It was too late. She couldn't stop it. No one could. Contact was imminent. Jiraiya had his back leaned against a fence to conceal his presence from the two genin he was following. Well, the kid did say that this Sakura girl would knock him silly if he had done what he wanted to do. I guess it'd still be good for a laugh to see what happens to him, the Toad Sage said dastardly to himself. With that last decision, Jiraiya slowly whirled around to see what had become of his future student, only to be completely blown away. Out of all of the things he expected to see during his brief stay at Konoha, the very last thing, was seeing Naruto kissing the girl that he was so nervous about hugging. Taking in the sight before him, he smiled proudly at the step Naruto had taken. The kid had guts, that much was certain. Well, Jiraiya whispered to himself. Naruto was in absolute heaven. To think that things would turn out like this, it wasn't his intention, of course. But it was really happening, he was kissing the girl of his dreams. Outside of his dreams. In the reflexive heat of the spontaneous moment, Naruto had flung his arms around Sakura's waist, while she, herself, had both of her hands placed upon his chest, inadvertently leaning into the kiss. With feelings that he thought he could never really experience, Naruto slowly shut his eyes, now knowing full damn well what was going on, and thoroughly enjoying the kiss. Sakura. Well, let's just say that her heart felt as though it was sinking into a pit of bliss. She could feel herself being pulled into the kiss even more, and to her absolute horror, she could not pull away. Indeed, she was perfectly capable of prying herself away and knocking Naruto all the way to S-dome. However, her body was paralyzed. Her pupils trembled, as did her knees. Sakura could feel herself weakening at Naruto's gentle embrace and warmth, finding it frighteningly impossible to loosen herself from him. It was far too overpowering. You son of a b. Who do you think you are? Sakura thought bitterly. Despite her distasteful thoughts, a sudden wave of desire that flooded into her body, rocked the very core of her being. No. I don't want this. No. The waves of unwanted urges that she was suddenly struck by, were far too great. Without realizing it, Sakura's eyes slowly squinted in a last-ditch attempt to break free from her cage of wants and needs. Instead, the pink-haired kunoiki's pupils rolled to the back of her head, before her eyelids closed. There they stood, in total silence, completely oblivious of the surroundings. Heavenly whiteness engulfed their surroundings, as the greatest feeling that either genin could possibly hope to experience, was washed over them in an instant. It was a still and savorable kiss, one that was never to be forgotten. It was truly bliss. Both genin simply melted at each other's touch, as though they had both found their rightful place in each other's grasp. As time went on, Sakura's mind became flustered with various thoughts, most of which was centered around the blonde kissing her. This can't be happening, not with you. What are you doing to me? Why can't I pull away? Why are you doing this to me? Sakura thought to herself, trying desperately to sort out what she was feeling at that moment. Why am I allowing this to happen? I love Sasuke-kun. 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 Naruto started to think he might have been dreaming after a while. To be this close to the love of his life, and without her pulling away. It couldn't be more perfect. In fact, it was too damn good to be true. If memory and years of dreadful experience were a key example, then good things like this never happened to him. Although these thoughts plagued Naruto's mind at this time, that didn't stop him from feeling what was present to him right now. To him, that's all that mattered. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Naruto felt his lips forcefully part from Sakura's. Not too much later after that, he heard a raged and vengeful scream assault his ears. He opened his eyes to see a pale fist about to crush his face, and it did. Something wasn't slightly odd, however. This wasn't one of those punches that sent Naruto flying in a comical display of ridiculous chemistry. No, this was a punch, a fully directed, intentionally hurtful punch. He could feel it, and it hurt. Since Jiraiya was still watching the development unfold, his proud smile soon morphed into a shocked look of disbelief. Naruto was just decked by the girl he liked, and to make matters complicated, she looked really pissed, seriously enraged. With his arms still crossed, the white-haired toad sage whirled his body back to lean on the fence and just listen to the development unfold instead of watching it. You sorry, pathetic, piece of hapless loser trash. You worthless, disgraceful, earth-eating termite. How dare you do that to me? What the hell gave you the right, Naruto? Naruto just sat there, holding his sore and bruised cheek in surprise and predominant despair. He had never ever seen Sakura look so enraged. Her eyes were full of what could only be seen as hatred for him. But Sakura-chan, I thought that. Thought I what? Enjoyed it? Sakura screamed, silencing Naruto completely. You think I'd enjoy being kissed by a clueless fool like you, Naruto? Never. I don't believe you, you stupid idiot. Naruto felt his heart breaking at Sakura's words. He knew that Sasuke was the one her favorites list, but to say such things, because of an accident. It was slowly becoming too much to take, and Naruto wanted it to end at that very instant. Sakura-chan. Shut up, Naruto. Just shut up and don't call me Sakura-chan. When will you ever get things through your impenetrable head? I don't like you and I never did. Sasuke is my one and only, but you just can't seem to get that, can you? No. You're like a mindless beast. A mindless beast who doesn't know when to give up something he'll never win. You're a failure. You're just as much as a freak as that thing inside of you, Sakura persisted without mercy. That was a low blow. For starters, how long had Sakura known about the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside of him? What part of it being inside of him made him a freak? More importantly of all, why was his heart quibbling with a feeling that he hadn't experienced since his journey to the land of waves? All of these questions surfed Naruto's now bowed head, darkening his eyes behind his hair. He lowered the arm that he used to caress his sore cheek to his side. It's no wonder everyone hates you. It's no wonder you're an outcast. You think that you can just stroll on here and do whatever the hell you want. You're nothing but an animal, Sakura shouted. That was the last straw. Naruto's hand was suddenly with one major twitch. It was at this exact moment that Sakura's brain finally caught up to her mouth. Once it did, she didn't make a sound. She just stood there, trying to process everything she had just said to Naruto. As she did, she could feel something different, like something was out of place. However, before she even had a chance to speak again, Naruto raised his head and glared at Sakura with the most frighteningly bloodlusting, demonic eyes that she had ever seen in her life. The blonde genin's irises became blood red and his pupils were slanted vertically. At the very sight of this, Sakura let out a terrified gasp and froze where she stood. She began to tremble as she was, now, hopelessly lost within Naruto's demonic eyes. Top that all of with the fact that Sakura felt something coming from her comrade, something that she'd never expect to feel from Naruto, especially towards her. But it was as plain as the skin on her face. It was hatred. Sakura's knees began to shake violently. In Naruto, she barely managed to choke out through her overwhelming fear. In turn, Naruto's eyes slowly changed back to the ocean blue color they had once possessed. Only this time they were overflowing with deprivation, betrayal, and a powerful grieving intensity. Is that what you really see me as, Sakura? He asked in quiet sorrow. An animal. A mindless beast, just like all the others do. Sakura couldn't utter a single word in her defense. A part of her wanted to say that he had no reason to be sad, that he should be happy that he's even allowed to live in this village, but she couldn't do it. She was virtually incapable of producing words at that moment. Things only got complicated when Sakura actually witnessed saddening tears well up within Naruto's blue eyes. You. Of all people that I. Not even able to bring himself to finish his sentence, the tears he attempted to hold back cascaded down his face with full force, yet kept the sternness of his voice in check. Fine. I understand, Sakura, he solemnly stated. With that, the heartbroken Naruto turned completely around, launching excess drops of tears from the rims of his eyes. Seeing him turn his back on her, Sakura frowned at Naruto, but at the same time, she felt as though her heart was literally being torn from her chest cavity, as though it were trying to close the growing distance between the blue-eyed blonde and herself. With this feeling quickly becoming too much to bear, Sakura's frown became much deeper as she clenched her teeth together and latched her hand over aching heart. Where do you think you're going? Sakura said bitterly to no one in particular, but addressed it to Naruto. I didn't say I was finished tearing you a new one, Barker. Despite her harsh words, unchecked and unnoticed tears ran down her face like a river of torment and pain. Each beat that her heart emitted sent shockwaves of agony throughout her body. She glared harder at the vanishing form of the distant Naruto, cursing him for the mysterious pain she was suffering. It's your own goddamn fault, she whispered. Jiraiya had heard more than enough. He remained where he was, unconsciously clamping onto his own arm with a death GS because of the things he had just heard. With Whis' usual calm look was replaced with a squinted sneer, Jiraiya listened to the upcoming footsteps that belonged to Naruto. As the blonde genin walked right past him, he failed to notice his supervisor's existence, lost in the void of his own dejection. It was heart-wrenching. Naruto, he thought rather nostalgically. Without letting another thought come into his mind, the aged hermit decided to leave it alone for now, and disappeared in a flash of smoke. At the high balcony of a house that was nearby, the face of a certain blonde female was drenched in tears that simply would not cess. Shaking her head and heaving whispering sobs, the turquoise-eyed female drank in everything that she had just seen and heard. Sakura, how could you? A little later that day, at the oh-so-famous Ichiraku ramen, the costumer favorite, Naruto, was ingesting another serving of ramen. To Naruto, visiting the food stand after only 10 minutes, was a sort of ritual for him. This time, however, something was out of whack, completely out of place and unfamiliar. At least that's what Tsuki's beautiful daughter, Ayami, felt. Since her father's shift was over that day, Ayami gladly took charge of Ichiraku. Yet, she wasn't so pleased with what she was seeing that day. Naruto had come back for a second coming of the godly wonderment, that is ramen, but in absolutely no way did he seem ecstatic about it as he usually did, and it definitely showed when the blonde genin actually savored his meal. He savored his meal. Instead of slopping down bountiful servings of the stuff like the bottomless pit of a shinobi he was, Naruto slurped up considerably small ones and bit down it prevent his mouth from getting too full. To make things just plain complicated, he actually blew on the ramen to cool it off. Who does that? Noticing this, Ayami reluctantly attempted to console the obviously troubled boy, while effortlessly preparing more ramen. Hey, Naruto, Ayami said, garnering the boy immediate attention, as he had finished a serving. Yeah, he responded without his usual cheery disposition. Are you feeling alright? Did something happen earlier today? She asked. Naruto slurped up another modest serving of ramen and swallowed it before he stared down at his nearly empty bowl. No, I'm not. And yes, something did, he flawlessly replied, without even batting an eye. A twinge of doubt after hearing Naruto's sudden bluntness stung Ayami, causing her to cease her cooking out of impulse. If there's anything you want to talk about, I appreciate it, Ayami. But I don't want you to waste your time. Thanks anyway, Naruto said unmovingly. Quite saddening indeed. Ayami focused her gaze upon Naruto's crystal blue eyes and just felt like crying. She became so used to the crack happy lug nut, that it was just too heartbreaking to see that he was in obvious pain. What bothered her the most, was that he didn't want to talk about it, not even with her. Used to be, whenever Naruto had something on his mind and decided to drown his sorrows in ramen, either Ayami or Tsuki would always be the one to talk to him and console him while he ate, and always left their stand in a lightened mood. Always. Now, however, he seemed so distant. Poor Naruto. I think something really bad must have happened to him. I can see it in his eyes, Ayami thought sadly to herself, as she stared at Naruto sympathetically. It was around this time that someone who had been following Naruto decided that confrontation was an immediate order. The follower wondered why she even cared this much about the former Ninja Academy dropout. She certainly never gave him the time of day when they had class together, a definite mindbender to be sure. She just felt compelled to do so. She couldn't just sit there and watch him wallow in passive-aggressive despair. It just wasn't right, especially for someone who seemed so happy before. She walked out into the open and approached Ichiraku. Naruto was now on his last serving. It was definitely something new, even to him. It took him 10 whole minutes to finish 2 bowls of ramen, and he wanted to savor the very last serving to its fullest. A new sensation, that much was certain. As he clamped his chopsticks onto the noodles, he slowly lifted them up to his mouth, blew on them to cool off and tenderly placed the severing inward. However, before Naruto could even taste any of it, an infuriatingly familiar voice called out from behind him. Naruto. The very sound, and treble, of that voice, caused Naruto to flinch greatly and impulsively clamped his teeth down upon his chopsticks, snapping their tips off. After remaining in that pose for small time, Naruto pulled the broken chopsticks away from his mouth, before calmly setting them down beside his bowl. He opened his mouth and slowly pulled out the tips that he had bitten off, one at a time, flicking them away. With new splinters in his gums, Naruto didn't even bother to look at the female whom owned the voice that called him. He knew all too well. What do you want, Ino? Naruto practically spat before his hands unconsciously moved to the sides of his wooden stool. Did you come here to be at me too? Well, bring it on, already. The blonde turquoise's face cringed, but she steeled her wool and used it all to edge close to Naruto and take the stood next to him. And no, of course not, Naruto. I just, Ino began to speak, before her eyes trailed down to where Naruto's hands were. The irritated pineapple-haired genin was unwittingly carving deep indents in his wooden seat with his nails and fingertips, without giving her so much as eye contact. With eyes now widened, a feeling that welled up inside Ino at this time, was as unsettling as it was confusing. Naruto never made her nervous before, but just staring at him with that empty sneer on his face while whittling the poor stool he sat on into nothing, she gulped hard and tried to find the right words. I just wanted T to say that. Naruto rose from his seat, reached into his pocket and pulled out the right amount of money to pay for his meal, practically slammed it on the counter in front of Ayami, and turned the other direction. You know what, Ino? Save it, cause I ain't buying it, he hissed with intensity before walking away with giving either Ino or Ayami a second thought. At this very moment, Ino's face cringed with guilt and shame. She bit her lower lip and closed her eyes tightly to prevent a rainfall of tears from cascading down her delicate face. However, before she knew it, the tears fell without hesitation, as she was finally able to whisper what needed to be said, a long time ago. Naruto, I'm sorry. What nerve? Naruto whispered to himself, as he attempted to walk his abundant irritation off. What nerve? The blonde genin had never thought that Ino would go so far. An apology was the absolute last thing that he wanted from her, and she was one of the last people he really wanted to see at that time. After all, she was just another figment of his troubled past. Since they graduated from the academy, however, they haven't seen much of each other, something that Naruto was grateful for. He did not like Ino, and he certainly hadn't the trouble hiding it, until now. He was pissed, irritated and depressed, but most of all, he was crushed. He inwardly questioned how Sakura known of Kyuubi. And if she knew, why was she able to tolerate it until now? Things just didn't make sense anymore. Naruto's mind was thrown into a whirlpool of doubts and despair as he remembered the terrible things that she said to him. They were supposed to be friends, at the very most, despite his hopeless infatuation with her. All things aside, it was rather difficult to see where they stood, now, seeing how Sakura's actions were no different from a common villager. And that's what hurt the most. Who else secretly hated him? Who else would just turn the evil eye and slam him down like she did? As Naruto continued his stroll, he suddenly felt himself becoming very downhearted. Why did things have to be this way? I didn't want Sakura to hate me. All I wanted to do was make her know how much I cared, and now, because of this thing, Naruto clutched his hand around the area where the fire seal was located upon his belly and began to tear up again. It's not fair. Naruto, a familiar voice spoke out, stopping the blue-eyed boy in his tracks. Naruto, what's wrong? The person who owned the voice was none other than Iruka Yumino. The Tand Academy teacher heard Naruto's voice from around the corner, then peeked around only to see him crying. That was never a good thing, especially for someone who always seemed to be happy. It was a bad look for Naruto, and Iruka wasn't particularly used to seeing him in that state. Why, Iruka-sensei? Naruto begged, lowering his head while his voice crackled. How come she, of all people, had to say those things to me? I thought she was my friend. Iruka had absolutely no idea what Naruto was talking about, but whatever it was tearing him apart. The Chunin was silent as he stared down at Naruto, while trying to hold back any sadness himself. Why did he curse me to this hell, Iruka-sensei? Why did he put this thing inside of me, and make everyone hate me simply for being alive? I don't understand, Naruto wailed, becoming more and more downhearted. Iruka knew what his former student was talking about right then and there. The Yondaime. But Naruto's words had some ring of truth to them. Over time, Iruka came to wonder the exact same thing. Why did it have to be Naruto? For that matter, why did Kyuubi attack in the first place? If that vile demon hadn't shown its ugly head in the first place, then maybe. No, it's too late, now, but, Iruka thought to himself, as he looked down to the, still, tearing Naruto. Hey. The blonde genin looked up at his former sensei with the same teary expression embedded into his face. Before he knew it, two arms wrapped around him, locking him into an embrace filled of warmth and understanding. Naruto, you know how painful it is to keep it all inside. I know you. Go ahead, let it out, son. No one will blame you, Iruka consoled. That was more than enough for Naruto, as he did just that. His head buried itself into Iruka's shoulder and he cried, long and loud. He didn't care who else may have been watching. He didn't care how high the probability was of someone snickering behind his back. He was so lost in his sorrow, in fact, that he didn't even notice her running away from the scene after hearing everything. Back at the Haruno household, Sakura sat on her knees upon her bed, while mindlessly banging her forehead against the wall in frustration and massive confusion. God damn it, what's wrong with me? She gssed in between her head bashes. After only a few more seconds of that, Sakura ceased her missing link actions and fully collapsed to her side. Now racked with pain, she curled into a ball and wrapped her arms around her aching head. I can't take my mind off of him, she groaned. How dare he kiss me? I told him that Sasuke was the one I wanted and he kissed me anyway. Bakam bakame. Two things were tearing into the pink-haired kunoichi at this time. First was that kiss. The very idea of kissing Naruto was far beyond the limits of her imagination, but it happened. It happened and it felt as real as everything else that had ever happened between them. Second, was what she said to him. She didn't even understand why she felt so rotten inside. It wasn't like she'd never tore him a new one before, so what made today any different? I've never seen him cry before, her mouth blurted out, as she unwittingly became melancholy. Did I really? Sakura snapped out of her disposition, replacing it with that of an angry one. Oh, get a grip, Sakura. It's what he gets for pulling S like that, she declared. Shanaro, don't be an idiot. Naruto's a fantastic kisser. Sakura's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates, when she heard her inner voice saying such things. What the hell? No. There's no way I could've. Yeah right, you've got half o' mine to go back there and do it again. Flustered and flabbergasted, Sakura gawked at the fact that her inner persona was turning against her in such a way. Never. If I ever see him again it'll be too soon. RHU. That's right. Keep denying it until you explode. Shut up. Or you can keep denying it, until you crash to your knees, and suck on his. Shut up. Before Sakura could even snap out of the conversation with herself, she completely rolled off of her bed, landing face first on the wooden floor. There, she remained, for minutes on end, trying to soothe the aching pain in her heart and sort all of her thoughts again, mostly trying to divert them from Naruto, but that proved to be an aggravating impossibility. Whenever she would try to erase his existence from her memory, the thoughts of him kissing her vividly replayed within the confines of her mind. In heated frustration, Sakura shot off of the floor and landed swiftly upon her feet, only to throw herself onto her bed again. Landing face first onto her large pillow, Sakura screamed in the top her lungs, while kicking her legs up and down. She continued her muffled howls of torment and failed to notice a frantic knock at her front door downstairs. Ino was sitting at the top of a staircase outside of a house that wasn't her own, after pounding on the door, for what she surmised as the 4th time. With one leg crossed over the other, Ino impotently tapped her fingers on one of her knees, while leaning back on her other hand, just sitting there, waiting. I know you heard me, god damn it, the blonde kunoichi cursed under her breath. After waiting an extra minute or so, Ino finally lost it. She rose up, stomped toward the door and started pounding on it with a lot more force. Sakura, I know you're home, now open up, she yelled. At this point Ino didn't even give a flying F whether her friend's mother was home or not. The urgency of having to see her couldn't wait any longer than it already had. Ino ceased her psycho knocking, only when she heard footsteps patting their way to her direction. With anticipation building within her, Ino took a couple of steps back from the door and started pacing madly to soothe the soul-searing anger that was welling up inside. Within a few more moments the door finally opened, revealing a red-eyed and frowning Sakura. Oh, it's you? Sakura practically spat out. What do you want, Ino pig? Without given any time to think or to react in the slightest, Sakura's senses were thrown off and nearly shattered when a vengeful, lightning quick punch connected with the right end of her face, sending a trail of warm saliva spewing out of the pink-haired kunoichi's mouth. With the force of the blow, Sakura was actually lifted off of her feet as she was hurled back into her house. She landed face first onto the wooden floor. Taking only a short time to fully assess what had just happened, Sakura drowsily lifted her torso off of the floor, while holding the left side of her face. Ino stood over the now glaring Sakura, with her breath heavy and her fists curled. Ino, Sakura growled, before shifting her aching jaw with her hand to soothe the pain. What the hell? Ino sneered. Me. I'm the one who should be asking you, Sakura, she yelled. Miffed by this audacity, Sakura immediately rose from the floor and glared kunai at Ino. First off, what the hell are you talking about? Second, who on God's green earth do you think you are, coming here and pulling S like that? She shouted. Ino took on a look of mock shame. Oh, I'm sorry. I was so lost in my vortex of tooth-grating anger that I'd forgotten to take my sandals off, she mocked as she removed said footwear and set them next to the door. Letting herself in, the heated blonde slammed the door behind her shut, never breaking eye contact with her longtime rival. Sakura, on the other hand, was not having any of that. She marched up to Ino and got right in her face. "And where do you get the guts, thinking you can come into my house after that?" she demanded, as she was very tempted to spit in the blonde kunoiki's face. Instead of a straightforward answer to her question, Sakura received a swift backhand to the untouched side of her face, an action that finally set it all off. "You be," Sakura howled with fury. The pink-haired female tackled her longtime friend, sending her stumbling back, until she hit the door, knocking the wind out of her. In a rage, Sakura flipped the distraught blonde over her shoulder completely and kicked her away. Ino skeefily caught balance and slid back upon the sleek wooden floor, remaining crouched down. "Who's really the bee here, Sakura? He liked you, he really liked you. But that wasn't good enough for you, was it? You just had to shoot him to flames and stomp on the ashes, didn't you?" Sakura flinched back, realizing at that point that Ino had seen and heard everything that happened earlier that day. She knew that denying it was beyond stupid. "Don't come to me with that. I don't like Naruto that way and I did what I did to let him know that," Sakura adamantly defended. Ino scoffed at what she was hearing. "Oh, I'm really convinced, Sakura. That's just what I needed to hear from a heartless bee like you," she shouted, while pointing at the jade-eyed female. Sakura's face hardened, feeling her heart pound through her chest with anger and adrenaline. "I'm warning you, Ino. Get out of my house," she growled. Ino rose to her feet and glared right back at Sakura. "Oh yeah? And what are you gonna do if I don't, Sakura? Are you gonna hurt me, huh? Are you gonna tear into me like a hot knife through butter and call me a monster?" Sakura's teeth clenched hard as the blonde's words crawled underneath her skin. "Well, the joke's on you, because there's no way that you can hurt me, or anyone else, the way you hurt Naruto," she declared with a mixture righteous fury and grief-struck determination. Sakura's eyes flared with rage. "That's it," she howled before charging at Ino in full force. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Konoha, Naruto and Jiraiya had been traveling further and further away from their home village. Just to point out the obvious, Jiraiya was a little ticked that Naruto was nearly impossible to get a rise out of after the little incident earlier that day, and he wasn't feeling any better, seeing as how Naruto was still moping around. With Naruto lagging behind, the aged mountain hermit sneered as he looked straight ahead. "He's still upset. Well, in his current state he won't survive this stage of his training," he thought to himself. With that last thought, Jiraiya stopped in his tracks. With Naruto failing to notice this in time, his face rammed into Jiraiya's back. Pulling away and rubbing his face to ease the pain, Naruto glared at his supervisor. "Hey, Ero-senin, what did ya stop so suddenly for?" he gsaid. Jiraiya was silent for a brief moment, before responding. "Naruto." The blue-eyed Jinchuriki stopped caressing his face and stared at Jiraiya in slight confusion. What is it?" Without turning to look at his younger counterpart, the white-haired toad sage continued. "Are you still worried about that Sakura girl?" he asked knowingly. "Well, Naruto began to say, but was cut off by his own doubt as he tried to search for the words to describe exactly how he was feeling now. "I don't know." That was more than enough for Jiraiya, who spun around and stared Naruto in his eyes. "Well then, in that case, I feel it's my sworn duty to say, get over it," he said coldly. Naruto flinched at the biting statement. What? "I don't stutter, Naruto. Women come and go, that's a roll of life that everyone suffers through whether it's fair or not. This, Sakura, is no exception. Moping around like a rock on a Sunday evening won't bring her to her knees, Naruto. She's already made it clear how she feels," Jiraiya said without wavering in the slightest. All Naruto could do was stand there and gawk at what he was hearing, without having a single word in response to it. "So, what are you gonna do, Naruto? Are you gonna whine and cry over her, hoping for her affections, or are you gonna suck it and be a man? It's time that you stop acting like a simple child, and stand on your own 2 feet, like a shinobi. It's your call." Much to Naruto's great surprise, he actually felt a gaggle of relief after hearing those words. He would have never thought that the exact words that he told himself would be heard from someone else, especially from raunchy MCL himself. It was enough to put a very content, yet nostalgic smile on his face, much to Jiraiya's own relief. Well, okay, then. Let's get your intense training underway, shall we? That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.